Welcome back to another episode of Sunday Sessions, emphasis on the sesh. Surprise, surprise, it is not another solo sesh this week. We actually have a guest on with us. Everyone give a round of applause to our guy, Ryan Gates. Say hi, Ryan.
Hello, everyone.
Ryan is a active member of our society who is contributing towards fitness, say even mental health, inclusion. He's also a dad. He's also a partner, and he is really giving back to his community and actually got recognition through the NLBA Achievement Award, which recommends and recognizes people who are promoting and giving back to the sport of basketball. And that's actually how me and Ryan randomly crossed paths this year. And yeah, Ryan, if you wanted to talk about a little bit of that and how everything got started.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm living in North River. I'm not from here. I grew up an hour from here in another small town, Winterton, which is over in Trinity Bay. Now, I always tell people that's kind of where my passion for all this stuff was born. People are like, what do you mean? Like, you didn't have any opportunity for sports in a small town outport around the bay? And I'm like, exactly. We made do with what we had, of course, growing up. I played softball, basically, exclusively softball. There was nothing else to do. As kids in the summertime, we played on the field 5 days of the week at least, sometimes down to weekends. The recreation committee there in Winterton kept the kids active with what they had, and that was softball. And it was a community thing, went way, way back even before me, where, our town, sent a team one time in the 70s to like a national championship. Or maybe it was the 80s, I can't remember. But it was always the talk of the town, but how such a small town could do something incredible. So, it's a bit of history there and a lot of people who were passionate about keeping things going in the town. And that's kind of where it all started for me. When I moved to North River after I was married, I met my wife, my current wife, Leslie, current wife. I think I'm going to have another one. Whoa, she'll love that. But yes, my current wife, Leslie, she was from here in North River, and we met in the city. And of course, like any relationship, it progressed to the point where we decided, yeah, no, we're gonna make a go of this, and we decided we're gonna get married and have kids. When the kids came along, my oldest, Patrick, when he was like 2, do a lot of course, once the kids got a little bit bigger like that, we started making the more frequent trips to my hometown where my mother was living, or Leslie's hometown where her mother was living in North River. And whenever we got outside the city and the kids got that little bit of extra freedom, they've really loved it. Like the amount of time I used to spend on the beach in Winterton with my oldest son Patrick when he was 2, literally just letting him throw rocks into the ocean. That's all he would do. He wanted to go down and throw rocks in the water. And I'd sit there and I'd watch him, and it would just make me so happy. And then I'd think to myself, like, there are no rocks in Mount Pearl, And Leslie would laugh, but she's like, you're right. Like, where's he going to find a rock to throw, right? So anyway, that was the joke, because that's where it all began, because our kids like throwing rocks. We always kind of knew that we wanted to live outside the city. We love Mount Pearl. We moved back tomorrow. In a heartbeat. It's a city that's set up well, it's run well, it's superior in just about every way to all the cities in Newfoundland, in my opinion, in how they operate. But it lacked a few things that I think outport living provides. So anyway, long story short, we moved around the bay. Now, in my past history, my professional career, I went to the Marine Institute and became a ship's officer. So better part of 20 years, I worked on ships all over the world, just traveling. Travel, and work, and worked my way up through the ranks to the level of master mariner so I could be captain on any of those ships. While I never actually got to the role of captain, I kind of mailed it in before that. I was in a training position for captain's jobs, we're up to the very end. When the kids came along, I realized I kind of wanted a big boy job. The running joke among sailors is the mom asks the son, what do you want to be when you grow up? The little boy says, I want to be a sailor. And she says, well, you can't do both. So, you can't grow up and be a sailor. So I said, no, I got to take a job where I can be a dad and kind of provide and everything else. And the minute I did that, I realized that, hey, wait a minute. I'm no longer gone half the year. I can dedicate myself to something that I really enjoy, or something that I thoroughly feel like I have a purpose. So I took a job with the Canadian Coast Guard, where I'm currently working. I've been there for going on 6 years now. And it was my first real shore job. Well, we'll say a shore job. It's not even a 9 to 5, it's shift work, similar to a nursing schedule in some ways. We have nights and days and this kind of thing. It's 12-hour shifts. So I'm sure you can appreciate that kind of a deal. But that's when I realized that I now have the opportunity to do what the people who I grew up around did for me when I was little, and provide something for kids, and in particular my own kids. That's obviously the driving force. I mean, I've always been big time into volunteerism. my entire life. Even when I was offshore, I found little mini projects that I could get involved with, like car clubs and different things that I could help with that didn't necessarily need me there 24/7, right? But now I was fully available to engulf myself in everything that was good in the world and do some great things and all, these big dreams that you have when you decide you want to be a volunteer. And I took it on. Without getting into all the nitty gritty details, North River Recreation was born as a not for profit. We set it up as a not for profit. I reached out on the internet, just said, "Listen, here I am. I'm new to town. I want to do this. Are there any other interested people? I'd like to be able to get 5 or 6 to make this board of directors." And immediately, I had 9 people total, including myself, who reached out and said, "We love the idea. We've seen what," because I had just started up a little t-ball program for the kids at the time, and we had like 20 kids on the field. It was ran through the municipality, and it was going great, and kids loved it. That's kind of how it all got off the ground. And from there, as you mentioned in the intro, we grew to right now, this summer, we're running 14 programs for 185 children. And it's not just North River. We're actually in the process now of a rebrand and a restructure, because it's what it was years ago is not what it is today. Not even close. We're one of the more successful recreation outfits in Newfoundland and Labrador. We're constantly getting support from the federal government, provincial government, to make our goals become reality and prove us into putting in our final reports that we submit. And it's working. And you can probably be a testament to that, which is why I had a question for you. You joined our women's basketball league. What was it about that drew you in, Miss April?
Well, I guess I played basketball from a young age. Really loved basketball, and it was one of my greater strengths, I guess, in my sports. It was something I focused on. I remember like being in grade 7, your mom gets you the basketball, your dad gets you the basketball net, you're outside, you're throwing around the ball, you're feeling good. When I got to high school, I kind of transitioned away from that. I kind of was more focused on volleyball. That kind of became my love. And then I guess once you are in high school, you kind of get caught up then with, your reckless behaviors, you're being bad, your course, you're drinking and partying and kind of doing that thing. And then that kind of transpires then into like university, college, or, people staying home, working, doing whatever it is that you're doing. And I kind of found that I kind of lost myself there for a bit in my first 20s. I lost myself while also trying to find myself, I guess, at the same time. And so I started to come back and ask myself the last few years, what is it that makes me me? What makes me feel good on the inside? What are my hobbies? What are my interests? Because as we grow older, I think we kind of forget about that youthfulness, the thing that brings us happiness, the things we can kind of do for ourselves. I joined volleyball there last year, and then all of a sudden I hear that there's this basketball league on the go. It's a women's basketball league at that. And to be honest, when I signed up, I thought, this is going to be a little bit of rec ball, super chill, gonna just go on Wednesday nights and have a good time. When I showed up, and it's like some of the best people that I've personally played basketball against. And then the women there they motivate each other. We're all there to have a good laugh. It's also super competitive, which was awesome. And it just brought together this like group of women who was like, you know what, we're going to do something for ourselves while also helping out each other. And then it kind of became this really cool thing. The banquet was awesome that we kind of put off as well. So I guess it was more of a way to just like reconnect, and it gives you time to like for people like me or whoever who's like kind of lives away from home, and to try to take the time out to kind of come back and want to give back to your community and being present, and then motivating hopefully other young women or whoever is around to kind of be like, you know what, yeah, like I could freaking do this. Or people who haven't even played before came and joined the team, and they were still having a laugh and having a good time and learning and stuff. So yeah, I would say it was for the connectiveness for sure.
That's a really interesting take, because it's not really what I was expecting, which is great, because that is the reason behind the league in general. I mean, obviously, at its core, we want to have something which offers activity and a healthy well-being for public, but you can do that without making a women's league. The reason that we decided to make it a women's league, I say we, it was me. I'm going to take credit for this one, because I put a lot of work into that women's league, and everyone was like, "I don't think that's going to work, man." And not on my board of directors, I had full support of the board. They were like, "Go for it, try it. We haven't failed yet. Who knows?" And like I pitched to the board, so listen, if I get 6 women registered, that's a huge success for me, because we can play 3-on-3 basketball, right? And it'd be 3-on-3 basketball is a sport that's taken over the world right now. Basketball as a whole is changing. The game started to change with Steph Curry when he entered the league, and
Mhm.
basketball that I watched when I was growing up in the 90s is not the basketball that's played currently in the NBA, and therefore it's not the basketball that's being played by kids. It's an ever evolving game. So again, let's start a women's league. Just see if we can bring out these 6 ladies to play together and make it so that they can support each other, but at the same time improve their skills and have some fun. Because if you can do all that, oh boy, is a recipe for success, right? And we put up the registration, and I had the 6 I needed in the first 30 seconds. I was like, whoa, okay. 12 hours later, when I checked the email, I had 28 women who had responded. And by the following day, we had 42 inquiries about the league. We ended up registering a total of, because not everyone, of course, as you know, not everyone was able to play full time. Because, I mean, women are the backbone of our society. And as much as it pains me to say that, because my wife's going to listen to this, she's like, ha, told you. But they are. I mean, you got professional women out there who are keeping the wheels turning in the economy. You've got the mothers of society who, again, are responsible for making the next half decent generation to follow. Every war that's ever been started, fought, usually if you trace it back, it goes back to someone started to fight over a woman. It really is that level of importance in the grand scheme of things. So we got it going, and again, we had, I want to say we had 8 call-ups. And when we say call-ups, it's people who paid their registration, but didn't pay on a per game basis, we'll say. And they were available to fill in if some of the girls couldn't make it. Now, we played a 11-game regular season, a shortened season, because again, I didn't expect this to take off like it did. Shortened regular season and playoffs. And we didn't really need that many call-ups, to be completely honest. Most all the women on the call-up list got minimum of 2 or 3 calls, but it wasn't like we showed up for games and there was 6 girls on the floor or 7 girls. I mean, each team had basically 9 or 10 players every game, and I would add the call-ups, not because they were needed, but because I wanted to give the call-ups a chance to play as well, which was always a point of contention. Like, well, do we really need 12? I'm like, you don't need 12, but the game needs 12. You know, we got to get more people involved, and we got to get more people having fun and talking about this, because it's bound for success if 90% of the people who come enjoy themselves, and that's where we ended off. And to your point, we ended off with a nice little banquet where we did it the way banquets are supposed to do. We paid tribute to the players who really put in the effort, and we kept statistics all year. It was a fully operational league where, points per game, 3-pointers, the whole shooting match across the board. And it was officiated as well, I think, which makes the big difference. If you want to run a league where I've been a part of many, many rec sports leagues that have failed over the years. Many, certainly in the adult range, because adults got better things to do sometimes if you don't do it right. And the major thing that I said when I was setting up this league was, if we want it to succeed, it's got to be interesting. Women are not just going to come for, they may, some would. There are a few women there who would just come for a scrap game basketball. But you're not going to get 20 every week. And we had 20 every week, minimum. You got to set it up such that the league is up for success, and that it's properly officiated. It's not me with a whistle, which I did do that a couple of times. It's still good fun just to get things off the ground. And when we were doing our, I did assessments, graded every player on where I thought they sat on an A, B, C category list, which I'll never release to the public because the women would kill me. But there were A, B, C players in our league, right? And A being someone who's played provincial basketball at a high level or played for MUN. These kind of players. And then there's C-level players who are players who legitimately never played basketball before. And we had a couple of those. So you want to make sure your C players are split up. You want to make sure your A players are split up. Was it perfect out of the gate? Of course not. We had to make a couple little trades after the first couple of games to make sure the teams were even. Boy, were they even. It really, really came down to the wire, because the team that won the regular season, which was the
real homies, our team, the Riptide baby,
won the regular season. The games weren't massive blowouts, but they were very, very dominantly played by the Riptide. We roll into the playoffs with the exact same teams, and the Eagles, the arch enemies of the Riptide, roll through the playoffs. I won't say with ease, but they had a very dominant playoff. So proof is in the pudding there. Both teams were ultra competitive and about as even as you're going to get. We named 2 team captains, and that was just based on me looking at who we had in the system there, who I thought would help guide their team in the right direction based on past basketball history, being Alicia Bird, who's a member of the NLBA right now. She's one of their staff in there in St. John's, competitive ball player, played at the highest levels on the island. and Sarah Malloy, who's Sarah, who will love and hate this at the same time, is one of the most competitive people I've ever met in any way, shape, or form ever in life. Too good for the better or for the worse. And she's like, I can't help it. It's just who I am. I'm so sorry when I get too into it, but I just love it so much. And I was like, listen, I feel you. That's me. You know, so I always respected that about Sarah, and so you throw these people in and give them a leadership role and empower them to build their own team and their own strategies and stuff, and it paid off dividends. Now, mind you, we had several women, multiple women who could have filled that role. It just came down to me trying to figure out what kind of league I wanted this to be, and I thought those two women would help guide it in the right direction. I also started up like just a mini subcommittee right from the very beginning in case I needed to talk to the players. So listen, I got a wife. Keeping one wife satisfied and happy is full-time job. Try to keep 40 happy, not for everybody, right? So I said I'll create this little board of directors kind of thing. We didn't call it that. It was just a committee to help guide the league. Included girls from, I say girls, ladies from different areas of the island. So because we had players playing from on down past Victoria. Lady Jade drove an hour for every game and never missed a game. So we had one of the girls from Carbonear was on our little mini committee. We had one of the girls again from further up the shore. We had oldest league member on the board as well as our youngest league member on the board, just to try and gain some perspective as to if we're missing anything. And once we got things going, there was very little I had to go to that committee about because it just started to work, So anyway, through the jigs and the reels, we had our first season, our banquet, awards were handed out. By all stretches, I mean, even the media reached out to us. I had several media inquiries saying, what is happening in North River? Like, how are you guys playing high-level competitive basketball with all these ladies coming off the court smiling every week? How have they not killed each other, So, there's always that aspect too, where, women are in a competitive setting and they're ultra competitive and they just want it. And how do you keep that from boiling over too? And, there were times, like in any sport, it's got nothing to do with gender either. There were times in the league where things got heated many times and the referees would be like, okay, let's dial it back here, ladies, because we don't want anybody to accidentally get hurt, right? Because it is, anybody who says basketball is a non-contact sport has never played basketball. It's non-contact in the rules, not allowed to hit anybody. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen. You get bumped into, you get knocked over. I've seen you go flying multiple times. It happens.
Oh, it's when you get knocked down, and I was thrown to the ground like a sack of potatoes. I just knew it was about to go down,
Yeah, it is what it is, and that's the name of the game. Everyone's battling for this one ball, and that ball's not easy to get a hold of sometimes, and stuff happens. That being said, we never had any what I'll call major injuries. Nothing that really. We had a couple that like sideline girls for a week or two because they had a bump or a bruise or whatever that might be. But for the most part, it was very well played, incredibly well officiated. I really got to hand it to the officials for keeping the eye on the prize. Ed and Dave refed the majority of our games, a good 80 to 90% of the games. That's Ed Jarvis, who again, he's an educator from the Carbonear area, works at the Carbonear High School, and Dave Penny. Again, Dave, longtime principal, educator himself. These are the kind of people you want. And Dave was a former professional rugby player too. Like he understands competitive sport. These are the kind of people you want to help guide this. So like I had no choice in who they sent, but luckily these guys are from our area and they always, search out, close referees that the people who are booking them don't have to pay travel. And these two guys ended up, and they loved it. They loved it. Ed coached most of these Carbonear girls when they were in high school, and so he got to reconnect with them. There's some great pictures around from, night one of him with the girls that were on the Eagles that he, brought them to provincial championships when they were kids, this kind of stuff. And they were all able to reconnect through basketball. On the other side of the coin, you got Dave Penny, who's been running CBM basketball here for, it must be a decade. I haven't asked Dave, but he's been running a basketball program, after school basketball program for a better part of a generation now. The girls who he started with when they were 12 are now in nursing school, doctors, lawyers, engineers. They're, contributing members of society. Some of the girls who he started off with, like Jessica Bursey, for example, was our youngest member. Jessica played basketball, and Dave coached her when she was in high school. So being able to give a mechanism for these people to reconnect to, I think, was huge. And having that inside knowledge of the ladies, knowing who they were and what they were all about, huge. Again, we talk about Alicia and Sarah as the captains, incredibly competitive. And both our referees who were there most of the time knew them both very, very well. Alicia is a referee herself, as is Sarah. Both referees with the NLBA, so they've crossed paths with Dave and Ed many times. Both are also have coached at a high level, have played at a high level. They've just continued to bump into each other. So everyone knew everybody, and everyone knew all their quirks, and it could not have went any better, April. I don't think. So that's kind of
Mm.
where how we come to meet people, because I think what you're going to find with this episode is that you're going to get a lot of the people who are really connected to North River Rec who've never listened to your podcast before. Because I've come to find out you had a podcast shortly thereafter, and anybody who knows me knows I did podcasting in the past, and I love it. I think it's a great mechanism for getting messages out, and it can be entertaining if it's a topic that you're passionate about. But I think dialing it back and giving a little more info on you too would be helpful to some of the people who I know are going to be listening because of me. So, what's your background? I mentioned nursing earlier, and let's go that route.
So my background, so I grew up in Spangers Bay / Tilton, and I've always been super interested in sports, but I'm also that geeky person that enjoyed books, science. I enjoyed committees, such as like student council and things like that. I enjoyed public speaking. And so I found that having all these little quirks and all these different things kind of helped guided me and actually helped me be a better person, say, when it came to education, was my focus for sports. My good thing with sports was also the public speaking, learning how to talk to people, learning how to communicate, because you're still so young and you're still trying to figure all that out. And you're saying, the competitiveness, what's too much, what's not enough, and then kind of trying to figure out where am I to say as a leader, but also as a just a member on a team in general. And so I came up, I went to Holy Redeemer. That was a Canaanite school. I absolutely loved Holy Redeemer, super wholesome. I like smaller groups of things. I just feel more comfortable in that. I feel like you kind of know yourself when you know other people, but then obviously I love branching out and meeting other people that way. Would help coach, say, the volleyball and basketball back in Holy Redeemer, really big into badminton, different things like that, and the rec program there. And then randomly enough, I was in cadets, went to nationals for biathlon, skiing, shooting, running, went ahead, went to university, ended up becoming a nurse, a registered nurse. I've been an emergency room nurse now for 5 years. Travel nursing, I've been to Labrador, Halifax, BC, different places like that. Decided to become a flight specialist and worked as a medevac nurse on airplanes up in the north, up in the Arctic for about a year and a half, even though I don't even like the cold. So that's funny enough as it is, minus 55, cold as hell out there. And then while I was away that way, I decided people had motivated me and told me to go back to school. So now I'm currently part-time online as a master's student to become a nurse practitioner. But I guess when I was away in Halifax, I've always felt that I had like a greater purpose in life. And I don't mean that in like a very like centered way. I mean, in a purpose to give back to people, to put a message out there, to provide perspective on things, because I feel in Newfoundland, especially, we're not as progressive and we're not as forward as a lot of other places that I've traveled to or been to. And I wanted to see some of that inspiration and some of that togetherness and connectiveness and diversity to come here a little bit more. And I've seen that now over the years. And I wanted to put my voice out there to not only like highlight Newfoundland and all the great things that we have to offer, but to provide a new perspective for our people here. And that comes through, I'm really passionate about homelessness. I'm also really passionate about providing a safe place for people, whether it's for medical reasons. I'm also really in big support of trying to figure out sustainability and ways of, clean water and providing food for people, fresh food resources. And also, simple as being able to safely ride your bike, whether that's outside or inside the city here in Newfoundland. I feel like we're really behind on some of those projects and infrastructures that actually lead to the success of better mental health. And people having better mental health means that they have a greater capacity to take care of themselves. And if you have a greater capacity to take care of yourself, you have a greater capacity then to give back to others. And I feel like we're in this really big transition, especially with COVID, where we're all the ugly is highlighted, and especially within healthcare, we've seen that where people have even greater lack of access to care. I feel that westernized medicine, I've said it before, is really great. It's awesome for acute issues, right? That's what we need to be here for, emergency medicine. However, westernized medicine is not meant and adapted. The model is not meant to take care of acute on chronic conditions at the capacity in which it is right now. People are being mismanaged out of hospital, and we're seeing that as a burden on the healthcare system now. And that is causing people to become upset. People are becoming angry. And I feel because people can't take care of themselves, they're finding it a lot harder to then give that love and support to others. And so my role and my purpose in life is to figure out how can we make people's lives better within our own province, and how do we give back to them in a way that they feel supported, so that we can then keep spreading that love and keep spreading the resources, and to not get caught up in the negative that there isn't enough, and all this craziness. Because if humanity as a whole needs love, togetherness, connectiveness. And that's why I love sports so much, because when you see people gather around for an event, or you see people gather around in support of something, people feel so good. So it's creating that environment in an everyday basis so that people feel better supported.
No, I love that. I absolutely love that, because I think that's just became what this podcast is about. I mean, folks, is Ryan Gates, your host for the Sunday Session. I hear my guest here, April Squires. She's talking about how we can better give back to society. And isn't that, I think, the common bond that we have with regard to what we're talking about here? And again, some of the things you mentioned there, the homelessness, the mental health aspects, is rampant. That's one of the true pandemics we're dealing with right now. Mental health, certainly. And again, this is kind of when we talked about all the times we talked about with regard to sport, one of the key outlets I thought was, giving these women, for example, in this league that we talked about, an opportunity to just put down the mom stuff, put down the job stuff, and go on and be kids again for the walks. Clearly, you love basketball before you loved any of the other things that are important today, right? You wouldn't be there if you didn't. So let them be kids again just for a couple hours, right? And I think that the mental health game, I think that impact on the mental health game for a woman who's got all these demands in society is paramount. I think women and men need it, certainly, because that's the one demographic you never hear anyone talking about, is the working middle class people who are just running the day to day thing. You don't hear enough about it. The people who got kids that are 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, the people who've got a very demanding job, the people who are just getting married and trying to get their finances straight. Good Lord, I wouldn't want to have to be buying a house or building a house in this economy. No thanks. These are people who've got a lot of stresses. So being able to step aside and take care of your own mental health through programs and community involvement, I think it's just the absolute best. I know through our board of directors that we have in North River Recreation, we've got some incredible people who've come forward, and they just continually say, this is a really hard job. Running this program, and the bigger it gets and the stronger it gets, it just becomes harder and harder and harder. However, there's no greater reward personally than seeing the outcomes. The outcomes from this stuff is just like, it's so good. Like being able to go to that banquet, put it off, enjoy the food, enjoy the fellowship and the togetherness and all that good stuff, and have a bit of fun, have a dance and a few drinks and all that good stuff. That's the kind of stuff you walk away from saying, man, all of that crap was just worth it, just to get everybody out and relax and let your hair down and just have a good time, right? And you talked about purpose in life and trying to make a difference, trying to make a change. Anybody who knows me really well and have known me for a long time, I've said this many times in online posts, in different things that I've endeavored to do. I can't even remember where I heard it. Maybe I made it up. Let's say I did. Make me sound smart. But there's a saying where it says, it's really hard for one man to change the world, but it's incredibly easy to change the world for one man. So I think if you approach everything you do in life, certainly when it comes to helping others and volunteerism or running a podcast or whatever that might be, if you approach it with that angle of not wanting to try and reinvent the wheel or do something massive, incredibly huge right out of the gate, I think that what will end up happening is that you'll get to that organically. You help one person, that one person tells somebody, gets a chance to help somebody else. Suddenly, one of those 3 or 4 people who've been helped reaches out and they help somebody else. And I guess it gets that snowball effect, and there's a lot of good feels. And one of the things I hate doing, that's why I'm not up on current events nearly as much as I probably should be, I don't like turning on the news. It's just a negative Nancy dance. Like, it's just like, ugh, gross. Like, yeah, I don't need to. While I feel for these people who are in these terrible situations in another world, what I can do locally to impact that is probably minimal. But what I can do locally is help, take the stress off of folks who are watching this stuff and who have lived through a pandemic and who have got problems right here at home, and that's kind of where I focus my energy. And 6 years running with this particular project. Most of these projects fail in the first 3 years usually, and this one is getting going. I think in my mind, we're just the tip of the iceberg. And like I said, maybe at the end of the show I'll announce our new name. That'll be a fun thing to do. That way I could share it on our social media. Say, hey, listen to this podcast. Also, here's our new name, because that's coming out real soon too. We're looking at regionalized recreation as opposed to what we currently look like, because it's not what we are. We're not North River Recreation. We run some of our programs run at North River, but some more run at Clark's Beach, Spaniers Bay, Carbonate. We are all over. So we're no longer just North River Recreation. It's more of a regionalized approach. Certainly, from a funding perspective, the money which we get from the governments to help run programs is spent regionally. So anyway, we'll talk about that some more. The whole purpose in life thing, I think, I gotta throw this in here, because I don't know if I've ever told anybody this. Maybe one or two people, my mom for sure, maybe my wife. But anyway, I got this. I'm not, when I say religious, I don't want to sound like I'm anti-religion, but I'm not a religious person when it comes to organized religion and church and all this stuff. I think it's very important, and for people who need that, I think it's incredibly important to keep these things going. However, I've always been more of a, I guess, like a spiritual kind of person, where I got my own belief system, and I got my own, do to others as you would have done on yourself. I grew up in the Salvation Army Church as a child in Winterton. It's the only church left there now, actually, sadly, with all the churches closing in our province. But I do feel like being a member of that church as a child helped guide my morals and values. I think sending children to any kind of, whether it's a church, a day camp, a YMCA, an after-school program, and letting them be influenced by good people is paramount to the development of children. It just is. You can't have it only at home or only at school. There needs to be a community around people. And like I said, from the very get-go, in Winterton, we had a very, very strong community. It was a multi-denominational town in every way, shape, and form. There were 3 different churches at the time when I was growing up, but everyone pulled together through recreation or through festivals or through whatever was going on. The town was always there, and it's still that way today. I have a house in Winterton where we do Airbnb it right now. Hey, go check out my Airbnb. It's the Buttercup. Shameless.
We'll provide the link.
Provide the link. But it's a beautiful little town, and I'll branch into talking about my second project, which is not sports related at all. It's the Trinity Hall Silico Records project in Winterton, which is primarily run by Hollywood celebrity Greg Wells. He owns a building there in Winterton. He's turned it into a venue for the arts, and he reached out to me, or I reached out to him early on to let him know who I was and why I was passionate about all these things, and he took me on as kind of one of his right-hand people, and we've built something really, really special there in the arts, which is, again, an area not everyone's an athlete, and a lot of times in high school, if you're not an athlete, then you're not anybody, and that's unfortunate, because I think the arts community's got something to offer that's completely different, but equally as important. So, yeah. So the Trinity Hall project at its core was the strangest thing I've ever been a part of in my life, ever, hands down. Probably will be for the remainder of my life. I'll give you the backstory on the project and how it came about. So let's back it back to, let me see, the 70s, when a young man named Greg Wells, born in Peterborough, Ontario. Maybe pre-70s. But anyway, I'm not sure how Greg is, actually. It's a good Wikipedia question. Greg's in his 50s now, for certain. In any case, born to a not well-to-do family in Peterborough, Ontario. His father was an Anglican church minister, as was his grandfather. Now, Greg's grandmother, I should say, was born and raised in Newfoundland. Lived in a small community in Trinity Bay called Thorfair. And that was one of the, the old resettled communities. You see the picture where they're towing houses. That was one of the communities that resettled, and a lot of these people ended up on the other side of the bay, which of course is our side, being Winterton, Heart's Content, New Perlican, all the way down the shore. So a lot of resettled communities on our side. That's a piece of history all in itself. But in any case, she grew up, of course, and married, of course, and Bert Green would have been her husband and Greg's grandfather, and he was from Winterton as well. So through the jigs and the reels, that's where Greg's connection to Newfoundland comes from his grandparents. Greg's parents ended up in Ontario. His mother, of course, lived in Winterton for a portion of her childhood, I think up to like, I want to say something like 10 or 11 years old. In any case, long story short, I might have some of these facts a little bit mixed, but in any case, Greg was born in Peterborough to a Newfoundland displaced family, is what we'll say. Like a lot of Newfoundlanders couldn't stay here for work. It's just not the case. So anyway, Greg grew up in a very Newfoundland household where there was, you know, photos and pictures on the wall of home, and there was a lot of Newfoundland sayings still tossed around the table as they were growing up. And him and his brother Rob turned out to be incredibly talented musicians. And I mean, like, you can see behind me, there's a bunch of like music equipment and shit. People must say, "Oh, you got all that stuff. You must be really good." I'm really not. I'm really, really not. Like, you, like 6 beer in for you, maybe you might enjoy some of my stuff, but like it's a minimum that much, right? Like, I'm not a musician. I party guitar all the way through college, as you mentioned. This, you know, doing all the things in college and find yourself figuring out who you are. I started playing guitar in grade 3, put it down because I was like, I don't know, this doesn't really suit me. Not really digging it. And in grade 7, grade 8, I noticed that the girls noticed the guys who played guitar. So I was like, hey, I got one of those in my closet.
I know what I'm gonna do.
Picked up guitar and again played in high school and stuff, and you know, your regular stuff, assemblies, and just played. And I did fell in love with it. Admit my reasons for picking it up weren't 100% pure. But anyway, music became just part of my everyday life and learning. I got to be decent at it by the time college rolled around. I got lots of practice because when you're in college, no one can afford to go downtown. You're looking for some cheap entertainment, so you're looking to each other, and we played a lot, all the time. Me and my buddies, house parties. There was a time when I could sit and play for like 4 to 5 hours straight and not have to repeat a song. You know, it was that kind of you just had to learn it because you had to keep it going. And we had great times. And some of the best times of my life were sitting around, you know, apartments in the Memorial University area or up in the Marine Institute area, the Higgins Line area, just sitting around and playing songs late into the night, and, you know, low light and good drinks, good friends and laughs, and just great times, right? So anyway, music, because of that, became a passion of mine. I wrote a little bit of music in my later years, which I've never released. I probably won't. I just really enjoyed it. So fast forward to Greg Wells, who's now an up-and-coming young musician in Ontario. I'm probably in elementary school. Okay. Greg had the lofty opportunity, because of his talent, to go to one of the more prestigious music universities or colleges. I can't remember the name of it now, which is shocking. But anyway, it was really a great school in Ontario. And he was granted a scholarship at that school to travel to Los Angeles to do some, I guess would be mentorship type stuff. Like, you know, these things happen for young musicians quite often. Now, what comes out of it is not what came out for Greg. Greg ran into a gentleman in Los Angeles named Mark Hudson, who turned out to be, he's one of the great producers of our generation. Worked with the likes of Aerosmith and all these kind of like big name rock acts. And being a great musician and a multi-instrumentalist musician, drums, keyboard, guitar, he could play everything. In Los Angeles and Hollywood, when you can play multiple things and you're saving somebody a lot of money, they don't have to hire 4 session musicians to come in to record a demo or to work on an album. They hire one and he plays it all. So Greg got to meet a lot of high profile people and works with some really great projects. Again, fast forwarding, he spent some time as well with the Kim Mitchell band. He was the keyboard player for Kim Mitchell for, I want to say, 4 or 5 years during the Rockland tour. So, you know, after Kim Mitchell released Patio Lanterns and all those great tunes, they had the Rockland Wonderland album, which came out, which was, again, another big hit. So he toured with those guys for years. And after that, I believe he played for Katie Lang. He was her multi-instrumentalist too when she was an up-and-coming artist, Canadian artist. Again, he got that job. He said, was I the best that there was? Absolutely not. There was a lot of great musicians, but he said I played everything, and that was very cheap for Katie Lang to employ. So, you know, he kind of got his feet under him in the performance side with those 2 bands, and still is great friends with both Kim and Katie to this day. They still communicate frequently. Where Greg's career went from there was on a trajectory like none other. Do you remember the song by Mika? It would have been probably your high school years. Mika Grace Kelly on the radio. It went to #1 all over the world. When Greg was trying to cut his teeth as a producer, as a music producer, someone who's, you know, really creating the music for other people, he was put in touch with this great young musician from the UK named Mika, and they got together and he worked on a bunch of stuff. And this is one of the songs that came out, so it was a #1 hit around the world, and that really is what opened up Greg's career. Greg played, when you listen to the track, Greg played everything on the track. Mika sang, Greg played, he produced the entire song. From there, Greg went on to work with Katy Perry from the time she was 19 years old to today. He's recorded on every album she's ever done. He co-wrote with Adele on Adele 21. He won a Grammy 2 years ago with Michael Bublé for Michael's new album, Higher. He won his first Grammy as the producer of the music for the movie The Greatest Showman. Hugh Jackman produced all that music, that orchestra stuff. So like he's had a very lofty career and is widely regarded as one of the greatest producers on the planet and probably the best mix engineer alive when it comes to that scene. At least that's what I've read. I mean, obviously the internet doesn't lie, right? So, yeah, anyway, you got this Newfoundland connection, which is amazing. So most people won't know who Greg Wells is until they hear that backstory, because music producers are very much the people who sit in the back, people who don't need the applause of strangers, right? So they sit in the back, they make things happen, and they create these lofty careers and incredible products for the people who are really talented and want to go out there and appease the masses. But are very much, you very seldom hear names tossed around. For the most part, the producer is kind of the unsung hero in the whole thing. So he's got this connection. The story goes, and it's a great story. There was a documentary made on it actually not long ago. I was involved a bit heavily because I had to tell a lot of the stories. Greg, again, his grandfather and father both preached at the Anglican Church in Winterton at one point or another. That building went up for sale about 6 years ago when it was deconsecrated, when it closed down. And he seen an ad one day. The algorithm caught him. He seen an ad, on his phone one night, and he's like, "What? Are you kidding me?" Because he'd been looking for another studio space and something interesting. He's like, "That's my grandfather. That's my church. I'm in Los Angeles, California. I've been here 30 years, and here's this property for sale in Winterton." So anyway, he immediately picks up the phone, calls, only to find out the building has been sold. However, real estate agent says, we have a second building coming up for sale because the United Church, which is a building legitimately right in front of this other church, just went for sale. It's in much better condition. I'm not sure when or how they're going to do it, but I think it's going to be sold privately to someone like yourself. And Greg's like, "Okay, let's do it. Let's make this happen. Like I'm all in." To buy it and convert it into something useful is a whole different kettle of fish, and that's where I came into the project to help guide Greg and help him along with the day-to-day dealing with contractors and the planning and the execution and all those good things that come along with trying to take something from nothing to a product. So anyway, the church has become a venue now, and it's known more or less around the province, certainly among the performing community, as one of the best sounding rooms on the island. Greg, who's had the opportunity to record at Studio A in England, where the Beatles recorded Abbey Road, he said that Trinity Hall has got as good, if not better, acoustics than that particular studio, which is widely regarded as one of the best on the planet. So again, we've been able to record music there. We've been able to help promote young people's careers there. We've been able to raise a lot of money there through a record label, which he set up, called Silly Cove Records. So there's the not-for-profit that is Trinity Hall, which is the performance venue, which is designed to give money back to the community. Then there's Silly Cove Records, which is the second side of the project, which is the part that I actually run. I'm on the board of directors for Trinity Hall, and I help with the programming and getting acts and whatnot, and work with that board of directors. But Silly Cove Records is a 3-person operation. Myself, Greg, who produces the music, and we got a financial manager who's actually my cousin. He's also from Winterton. Great guy, Kevin Harnham, and he's very, very intelligent. To the time he retired, he worked for TD Bank primarily, and he was one of their major executives for a long time. In any case, Silly Cove Records is now, since in 2 years of operation, 2.5, almost as it began, almost 3, we've been able to do some really, really cool things. We've signed, multiple artists. Some have worked out, some have not, but multiple artists to the record label where they pay nothing to be a part of it. They work with Greg Wells, who is currently, while Greg is working on their music, he's also working with Ariana Grande on the Wicked movie. He's producing all the music for Wicked with Cynthia Rivio and Ariana Grande. So these young people get a chance to work with Greg for free, who, again, putting out albums, which would, if they were to pay for it at a Hollywood level, would be Grammy prices, which is like $500,000 type, like these Hollywood record producers, they're not cheap. That's why they're in Hollywood, right? So they're getting that level of service and that level of quality for absolutely nothing here in Newfoundland and Labrador, with the expectation that any money that's made from record sales or from streaming or whatever, 50% goes to the artist and 50% goes to local charity. Greg takes 0. I take 0. Kevin takes 0. It just supports, again, more local initiatives like the ones you've talked about. Ambulance services and fire departments and things that need a little help sometimes. Our biggest project to date has been what's called a Trinity Hall Christmas. So again, it kind of links the two together. Silly Cove Records produced the album, and the shows that came along with the album stemmed from Trinity Hall, and as well we ran one here in North River because I'm here. And last year we ran one at the Majestic Theatre in St. John's. We've raised for the Janeway over $17,000 in 2 years. So again, taking an idea and putting some good people in charge, and then reaching out to more good people who want the experience of working with a Hollywood record producer for a Christmas song, but at the same time want to give back to one of the greatest charities we have in the Janeway. It was just a recipe for success. So I was really happy to be able to be the guiding force for that. I went to Greg. I said, I got an idea. You might tell me to go jump off a cliff. I really don't. Which is, I think, why me and Greg work so well together. Because I don't care that he's Greg Wells. I think he loves that. Like, I legitimately don't care who he is. We've become the best of friends. I love him dearly, but I could care less who he is. And so therefore, I talk to him like I talk to you or anybody else. If I think his idea is stupid, I'll tell him. If I think his idea is great, I'll tell him. And he does the same to me. And he always says we have a relationship based on abuse, and it works just fine. And that's the running joke, is that we just give each other the gears constantly. And again, he's a humble guy from Peterborough, Ontario, who, you know, through his own hard work and determination has now a very lofty career, but he's still just a regular guy. In my travels with all this stuff over the years, I've met a lot of different celebrities through sport and through music, and at their core, just regular hardworking people. They're no different than the rest of us, and Greg is no different than the rest of us, not a bit. He just has the opportunity now to be able to do the things that I wish I could financially afford to do. Maybe someday I'll do something similar. I don't know. I'm already doing kind of something similar with more for recreation, but we don't have a facility yet. Soon. In the coming years. 5-year plan. Anyway. So yeah, that's where the Silly Cove Records project. Well, it has nothing to do with the North River Rec project and couldn't be any further apart. At its core, both are exactly the same. Both are providing a service and providing an opportunity for locals and something outside the box that doesn't cost a fortune, but, you know, can give back in a big way on all aspects, whether it's the mental health portion, whether it's the financial portion of charity, whether it's an opportunity for other people to get out and get involved, do things to help. And a little help, if we all, like I said, one of my other things I say all the time is if everybody helped just a little bit, everybody, just a little bit, just like the whole concept of if everybody gave $1, we'd have billions that we could do. Not everybody can afford $1 either, but my point being is if everyone helped just a little bit, we could accomplish a lot, right? So through all the things I'm doing, I'm trying to keep at the forefront, including and involving as many people as possible, empowering as many people as possible to want to do something. So I sit around and go, woe is me, the world is shit, and I'm just part of the major wheel here. That's not the case. You know, I've listened to your podcast several times, which is why I was quite happy when you asked me to be on, because it seems like the resounding trend that you talk about is, you know, get off your ass, write an email, write a letter, call open line, whatever that is, whatever your outlet is, do it. Just do it.
I think with society now, people feel because there's so much negative and there's so much going on, people don't feel like their voice matters, or they feel like they can't have an impact. And like you're saying, it's just this small little thing that in numbers, that's how change is created. That's how you give back. That's how you end up starting with that snowball effect, because 1 leads to 2 and 2 to 4 and 4 to 8, you know, it just keeps going. And so to remind people of their power, their internal power, and their ability to shine and their ability to glow and to think of the impact, even if it's quite small on someone else, you truly don't know the magnitude of the ripple effect of all of it.
I truly believe there's no such thing as a small impact,
No.
right? You know what I mean? Like, any impact can be and is generally huge. Like, if you turn around at the grocery store and pay for someone's bag of chips, the impact that has on that person's day can be freaking massive, right? Like the whole paying for the person's order behind you at Tim Hortons. Whoever decided to start that should win a Nobel Prize. What a simple gesture that just has a ripple effect like none other on many people's days all the time. Like, it's just, it doesn't need to be the biggest gesture ever. You don't need to go out and start up a not-for-profit and run basketball courses and or basketball programming and stuff. You don't need to do that stuff. If you can, great, which I could, so I did. But it doesn't need to be that. Maybe you can be the person who helps collect the money at the door for an event, or maybe you can be the person who offers up to help your neighbor with their yard maintenance. Like, it doesn't need to be a giant gesture in your own mind, but I guarantee you the impact that it'll have on somebody is going to be huge, right?
Sense of community, sense of togetherness. Like, what people do so well when they feel like they're contributing to something bigger than themselves, whether it's only 2 people in the group or whether it's a bunch of people in the group, the value that people feel from that is so astounding. And you could just see people, they feel so good, and they should feel so good about it. You know, it's great to feel good.
There's nothing in this world that'll give you the level of satisfaction that helping somebody else can give you. I don't care what it is. There's no, when you do it for the right reasons, and I mean, you'll get the naysayers that will say, oh, well, you're posting stuff on Facebook just to make yourself look good. Or, oh, you're on a podcast with April Squires talking about how great you are because you want public recognition. It's not about that. No. I mean, the naysayers will say it, but it's not about that. If you can get out and encourage someone, that's all I'm hoping from this podcast, is that someone listen to me and you, who are very much the same mindset when it comes to these things, and they walk away saying, well, they're not assholes, or at least they don't seem to be. The message that they're pitching is not. So maybe they can go away and feel like doing something today or tomorrow, or reach out to me or reach out to April and say, do you know of anything I can help you with? Because we'll
Yeah.
find something for you. Guaranteed. 100%.
I got
Right?
10,000 things on the go. What do you want to do?
What do you want? What's your interest? Because that's find something you're passionate about and then help others with it. That's all you got to do. If that's knitting, get together and show some young people how to knit. If it's sports, get together, do a coaching course, learn how to coach kids. If you're into medicine, look at some of the things that are available to young doctors and nurses. Where there's the Doctors Without Borders thing. This is just that Doctors Without Borders business, because it is a business, is a not-for-profit business, no different than North River Recreation. It just happens to be the biggest one on the planet. Right? And it's grown because of good people who've donated good money, and it all goes to the right causes, and then good people who come behind them to do the work. And it's one of the most profitable businesses on the planet. But the business itself doesn't make any money. All that money goes back into the business, right? And that's why not-for-profits are so very important. As a not-for-profit, you're allowed to have employees, you're allowed to own assets, you're allowed to have resources. But the people at the very top making the decisions are not allowed to profit from that in any way, shape, or form. They need to donate their time and donate their knowledge and guide the ship in the direction that best suits the operation. Imagine if every business on the planet was run that way.
Oh, the
I'm not
corruption and
saying,
the greed would just really get out the door, hey?
again, back to your podcast, the episode that you did on corruption, greed, the whole thing. I listened to the whole thing, and like there are very few podcasts that I can sit down and listen to one person talk for that long. And that one I thought was a very, very well put together episode. Highly recommend after you're done this one, if you haven't heard April enough, go back and listen to that one. It's a great episode. And again, power, corruption, greed. It's what's driving the world right now, the world economy. There's all kinds of far left, far right people who got all sorts of opinions. But at the end of the day, it's been how our world has operated for years.
Mm.
Is the impact you're going to have on that going to change anything tomorrow? Absolutely not. But again, start small. Right? Everyone needs to start somewhere small. So I'm gonna throw it back to you now, Miss Squires, and see if you got any Q&A type thing, rapid fire if you like, and we can just knock off some stuff with regard to the volunteerism and the projects, and the this and the that, and the whatever you want. Go for it.
Whatever we want. Okay. What do you feel has been your most impactful experience within any organization or any sport that you've been a part of that has really hit home for you at the center?
Hmm. As I mentioned, that Trinity Hall Christmas project, because it was just an idea, and I was like, if we put enough good ideas into the one good idea, it's gonna be hard for people to say no. When you make it tough for people to say, I'm not gonna buy it, like again, you put together a concept where you got some of the greatest artists in Newfoundland Labrador history. Last year we had on the album we had Alan Doyle, the Navigators. We've had the likes of Justin Fancy, up and coming stars like Rachel Cousins and Summer Bennett, who again through Silico Records now are getting ready to explode on a national level. Both of them. I wouldn't be one bit surprised if either of those went on to in the future win a Juno, for example. Um, Summer, one of the songs she wrote with Silico Records, Summer Bennett, just won the international songwriting competition. 14,000 people from around the world entered the competition. She won. She just won the Toyota Searchlight, I think CBC Searchlight now competition for songwriters with the same song in Canada. So she won the national level and the international level. She's going to a camp now. She's been invited to a camp in Seattle, going to another one in New York City, where SEAL is the guest instructor and performance. It's a performance-based camp. These people are just Newfoundland's level of talent is just so extreme. So when you pull these people together, give them an opportunity to give back to something that they're passionate about too. There's nobody in Newfoundland who's not been impacted by the Janeway. Amazing people. You pick an amazing charity, then you make it such that the people who are supporting that are directly supporting both the artists and the charity. It's really hard for people to say no, it's a bad idea. And we raised a ton of money with that. So successfulness, while not linked to profitability, that one was both. To me, it scratched both itches for me. We made a lot of money for a great charity. We also put out some stuff into the world that was very, very helpful to people around Christmas time. There's some songs in that album that people reached out to us, so you know what? Christmas does suck sometimes for some of us, and this song helped me through it. So there's a bunch of aspects of that which I'm really proud of. But the other thing is the social impact that North River Rec, not the basketball, not the softball, not the pickleball, not the soccer, not the tennis, but the social impact that the organization has had on the greater Conception Bay North area. Like, for example, I'm a stats guy. I love, I grew up in sports. I love stats, right? North River Recreation as a Facebook page, when you look into the insights for Facebook, We get 250,000 views every other 3 months. We get half the population of Newfoundland. We know it's not just Newfoundland. The outreach that we're creating. We've had posts from the Women's Basketball League, which have seen 60, 70,000 people have seen those posts and seen April Squires with her friends, all smiles after a game, because it's a feel-good thing. And people in general in this society are aching for some good news. Whatever that good news is. Cat rescue from a tree, great. April Squires teams loses in the playoffs, great. Not for April, but my point being is that people are looking for something to latch on to, right?
Yeah.
And bad news is easy to find. So when you put something out there good, the social impact that all these programs have had, and like I said, to see it continually grow, for us to have 185 kids registered this summer for sports, and we started here in my basement 6 years ago. Here's what we want to do. Let's do a T-ball program. Okay. Let's maybe have a cold plate dinner to raise some money so we can buy some new equipment. Okay. That's where it started. We've seen people come and go because that's the nature of not-for-profits. People are going to come and go. I've joined and left various not-for-profits over the years when I feel like my usefulness to that group is no longer required. If they're in a good spot and they're set up for success and I need to put my emphasis elsewhere, then I do. As should everybody. Change is healthy. Having the same core group in charge for a long time, never a good idea. It gets stagnant and gets boring, right? Same reason why businesses change hands. But yeah, I think that the social impact of all of our programmings, because it ranges right from seniors right down to, we got 3-year-old tot soccer running this summer and the little kids in their little Timbits uniforms. Oh my God. Like, you talk about cute, right? So, and again, you got their parents coming out to help volunteer as coaches. You got their grandparents showing up at games, getting out, letting the wind blow on you. And it's all smiles, smiles for miles all the time at these events. If you're having a bad day, just go do something in the public scene. Like, just if you're having a bad day, get outdoors, go see some people, go to the grocery store. Maybe not. That'll depress you.
Avoid people. No, I was kidding.
Don't go look at the price of butter. But get out and do something. And you'll feel better for it. And again, that's my big thing. So, anything else from you?
What is something that you aren't good at but wish you were good at?
Oh,
I know
God.
you have a multifaceted array of random talents and sticky fingers and everything. I was like, every time you tell me something, I learn something new about you, which is, I think, so fascinating.
Yeah. I am the quintessential definition of the jack of all trades, master of none. Like, I am no good at anything other than what we're talking about here. I've discovered through, because like you were talking about when you were in high school, student councils and this. Like, I wanted to go to, when I was in grade 11, I wanted to go to youth parliament because I thought government is really interesting, and it is. It's also very corrupt. But in Newfoundland, Labrador, it's more interesting than it is corrupt, luckily. So I wanted to go to youth parliament. I went to youth parliament, and there was a lot of emphasis put on Newfoundland Labrador Youth Parliament in developing leaders. And I learned there that, yeah, okay, I'd been on student council for a couple of years at my high school. I've been, the kid in the yearbook who's in every photo. That was me, right? I'm in chess club, drama club, basketball team, student council, like whatever there was. I'm like in the back, all awkward and strange. And I just did everything, and I wanted to create something here that my kids could, at least give a chance to try. Like, get your kid, if you're a parent, and you're watching this, get your kids to try everything. Just because you're from Conception Bay North, I don't mean hockey is to be all end all, right? There are other things. I'm not saying it. I got no issue with hockey. I got a little guy here who's a goalie, and he loves it. But I impress on him. I said, it doesn't have to be your favorite sport. You tell Dad what your favorite sport is. And he's like, can I list them from 1 to 5? And I'm like, yep, go ahead. He's like, my favorite sport is soccer. My second favorite sport is basketball. My next favorite sport is tennis. My next favorite sport is softball. And my fifth favorite sport is hockey. I'm like, well, I'm glad I'm putting thousands of dollars into your fifth favorite sport, right? So yeah, and that's exactly what I want. I want my kids to decide. I don't want them to be pushed to say, okay, you're a hockey player now and you're only going to play hockey. I did not want that. To each their own. I mean, some guys grow up and they play competitive hockey their entire lives and they really want their sons to be hockey players. And to each their own. But that's just not how I want. I want my kids to try it all and learn, and at least give them, like I've told them, they can give up anything that they want to at age 11, as long as they're doing something. I do one thing. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's martial arts. I don't care if it's cheerleading. I don't care what you're involved in. But you do have to do one thing. So in the time between now and age 11, you're going to have to choose, right? And they're both actively involved in everything I just mentioned. They both seem to have taken a liking to almost all of it. My oldest is kind of stepping away from hockey now because he's decided, because he's me. He's me to the backbone. It's like scary. I look at him, the things he says and does. I'm like, oh boy, you've got a rough life ahead of you. He really loves basketball. He's just taken to it. He puts work in at it. Like I've never seen him put work into anything. He's just very much a butterfly flying through the field. Like, oh, look, a squirrel. Like he's his mindset. But basketball, he's like, I'm gonna go out in the driveway and shoot around for 15 minutes. I'm like, wow, you've never took interest in anything before. So, which is why we started us even pre women's league. We started up a U10 basketball travel team, which was incredibly successful. The first travel team to enter Metro League from our area ever. And we had 12 boys who traveled to St. John's and they played all year. And they finished third in the league out of 5 teams. They weren't the best. They weren't the worst. They were right where they should be.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a great big celebration. You know, the parents came together. I tasked the parents, okay, if you want to do great things for these kids, you guys fundraise the money. And I don't. And we had a great parent group that came. They raised over $4,000 to buy the kids track suits, gave them a photo shoot, took them to, for our year end, we had a big party down in Carbonear where we had a swimming pool rented and pizzas, and we did a trip to get air, and we did all the things that, because if you remember from sports, do you remember the wins and the losses?
God, no.
I can't remember. I remember one win in my whole time playing sports. I remember one. We won a tournament, a regional tournament when I was in grade 12 in basketball. I remember to win. Everything else, I can't tell you if we won,
Yep.
lost, what the score was, don't know how many points I scored, but I can tell you all the funny stories about going and playing soccer on the Burin Peninsula as a bunch of grade 12 students who've never played soccer before. And let me tell you, we got our asses handed to us, but we had a great time. We had the best time as a high school student. We didn't score a goal the entire tournament. St. Lawrence and Lon and Marystown and Fortune walked over us as they should. That's, you know, soccer's religion on the Burin Peninsula. But man, the stories from because we were all billeted out and we were down there for 3 days and we got into all sorts of trouble and chased all sorts of girls and did what was to do as a teenager. And it was the best time. So I don't care about wins and losses. I legitimately don't. I encourage my kids not to worry about it. Be competitive, try your hardest, but who cares if we win? I legitimately don't care. So to see them have success without having to focus on the success was just such a great thing for me. And that's what came back to. That was part of the nomination you mentioned earlier, which, again, I didn't talk about it on the podcast because I don't want to make a big deal. I'm not looking to hip hooray myself, but I was really, truly honored. It's one of the very few things in my life that I was truly honored to have received, because the Achievement Award, I was nominated for 4 awards. I was floored. I was nominated for 4 of the 5 NLBA awards this year I'm told from the NLBA, it was from not just one application. There was multiple applicants that came in from my junior MBA program that I run for little kids, Special Olympics basketball that I run for wheelchair and disabled children. The Women's League, there was something came in from them. The travel team that I just mentioned, there was something came in. So there was multiple applicants from the community who thought well enough. Again, I almost get emotional thinking about it, because one of the hardest things to do in the world, whether you're a politician, a teacher, a not-for-profit person who's volunteering or something, is to get people to the point where they're willing to do something. And if that do something was write an email to the NLBA to tell them that something great happened, when you get to the level where you're got people to actually do something, because the amount of times you'll go through the internet and see a post where it says, click here to help sign a petition and something, and even if it is something you're passionate about, a lot of people just scrolls on by because it takes too long to do it. So to empower somebody to the point where they're actually willing to get off their ass and do something, I was just floored at the nomination. I was even more honored to win, because my wife said, which one would you choose to win if you could only win one? I said, definitely the Achievement Award, because that to me is what it was all about, is growth in the area. And I don't care about being the best coach. I don't care about being the top elite, whatever, blah, blah. That doesn't matter. Great if I got it, wonderful, I would be astounded. But that Achievement Award for growth of the sport of basketball in our region was truly the icing on the cake for a long, long, long year of pushing the ball up a hill, pardon the pun, you know what I mean?
100%. It's not easy to have to give yourself a little bit to everything in your daily life, but then to also be able to give yourself the things that you're super passionate about and the things that make you feel good because you see other people feeling good because of all the hard work that you put in. It's just a full circle moment. And it's like, wow, truly deserving of it as well. Totally deserve a pat on the back. And I can definitely say on behalf of myself and the girls from the basketball league, just what we're a part of, just to see someone so dedicated, even when you're sick and snotting and coming and still showing up. And I'm like, damn, okay, if he can do it, we can do it. So it's like, it's such
I was
a,
sick the entire winter.
it's,
I was sick the entire winter. It sucked. But yes, thanks for noticing.
it's super great and it's super awesome to see people get recognized. And it's so nice that the awards are put into place to give that recognition to people. Not that, it's not that it's needed, but it is good for the soul, and it's good for people to get the recognition that they deserve, because at the end of the day, you're putting in a lot of work, you're putting in a lot of hours, and it's volunteer, to do all of that, to just see something sprout and to see something beautiful be created from it is just awesome. So
The achievement of my lifetime when it comes to this was this past year. I was nominated for Volunteer of the Year with Newfoundland Labrador Basketball Association and Volunteer of the Year from Music and L. So two incredibly opposite ends of the spectrum, and to be nominated in both categories, different organizations, was truly an honor. I obviously didn't win the Music and L one, but I don't care. Nomination to me is what where it's at. Everything after that is just gravy, and I was truly floored by it all. And again, thank you so much for having me on here. Did you notice how I dodged the question about what I'm not good at? See, that's the politician in me, right? I never did answer the question.
He's like, I'm great at everything. Don't even ask.
No, I'm really not great at playing the drums. Sitting behind me, they're terrible, and like it's a migraine waiting to happen. So I'd like to be better at the drums. Thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah, I want to thank you for coming on. I'm so glad that we connected. And like you said, it's just so funny how different avenues or different paths in life connect you with different people, and people that teach you perspective and give you a new, just like that new outlook on things. And I feel like I was provided that this year, and just a reminder of just like my passions and things through that. And so I just want to thank you for coming on and being a part of the podcast, and then to find out little tidbits from yourself here and there. And hopefully, whoever listens to this, they feel motivated, they feel happy, they feel maybe a little bit inspired to go chase their dreams and to give back. And that's what it's all about, really.
Yeah, same to you, dear. You keep going. This is great stuff. I wouldn't be here if I didn't think it was great. So good for you.
Well, I guess this is another episode conclusion for Sunday Sessions, emphasis on the sesh. I want to say that you'll hear me again next week, but we all know that I am like a fly on the wall. I will try my best. But Ryan, thank you for coming on, and thanks for sharing your story and your values and your ideas with the people and the listeners. And I look forward to having you on again.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Let's do it again soon.